Yeah, I think she's in Singapore, yeah. Okay, yeah, why do you ask?
No, because I love listening to her videos. I think she's remarkable.
Yeah. Okay, no, it's 8:30. I don't think anyone else is coming.
Okay, thank you, Ante.
Okay, no problem.
Q2 and good evening, everyone. Welcome to MSBS Weekly Guided Meditation by Phra Goh. Today is the 22nd of June 2021. We're very fortunate to have with us CK Adhibalo, well known as Phra Goh. Bhante had his Bhikkhu ordination into the Theravada tradition of Thai Dhamma sect at Santi Frost Monastery in Johor, Malaysia in 2008, and spent the 5 rains retreat at various forest monasteries in Malaysia and Thailand. He is currently the religious advisor to Buddhist Youth Network Singapore. This week we are continuing last week's talk on the 5 qualities conducive for enlightenment. Bhante will be leading the homage to the Buddha and taking of 5 precepts for Buddhists. Now let us compose our minds, put our palms together, and welcome Bhante. Over to you, Bhante.
Okay, thank you, Terence. So we shall begin with the opening chant. Homage. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And the 3 refuges, Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. And the 5 precepts. Panatipata viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccācara viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Suramiraya majjapamadatthana viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Today we shall continue the second lesson on the 5 qualities. Yeah, so these are basically the 5 spiritual faculties or the 5 powers. Yeah. So we talked about the first chart. Last year I forgot to mention was the relation. What are the 7 sets of qualities? Right. You see the top row. You have 4 frames of reference. It comes from the Noble Eightfold Path, and the last column. Yeah? There's the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Under right mindfulness, you have this 4 foundations of mindfulness, or Ajahn Jeff's translation, 4 frames of reference. And the second one, for right exertion, there is a 4 right efforts, also part of the Noble Eightfold Path, the right effort. And the 4 bases of power is a different classification, right? 5 faculties, 5 powers, also different classifications. And 7 bojjhanga factors, right? 7 factors of enlightenment comes from the 4 foundation of mindfulness under the mindfulness of the Dhamma. So one of them is the 7 factors of enlightenment. So basically most of it comes from this Noble Eightfold Path. So they repeat the last one, Noble Eightfold Path, and you add all the numbers together, they give you these 37 factors of enlightenment. Yeah, why do you need to separate so many? I don't know. Anyway, this is not giving out lottery numbers. This is just how they classify it. Yeah? Okay, so the 5 powers or the 5 qualities are on the first column on the very left: faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So last week we talked in detail a bit on faith, and today we are carrying on with this triple gem. We talk about the Buddha, the Dhamma, and today we talk about the Sangha. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so the Sangha, basically there are 2, generally, 2 kinds of Sangha. First is the conventional Sangha. That means what you see in appearance. So you see a person in robe, right? Or you see the diagram, the picture, they're wearing the monastic robes, whatever color it is. Then that is the conventional Sangha. At least we sort of represent outwardly. There's this Sangha, the disciples of the Buddha. So these are the external kind of Sangha. And the next classification is the, we call it the real Sangha. So the real Sangha is actually what is mentioned here later, the 9 qualities. So I don't only talk about 5 qualities, different from this one. So this is 9 qualities of the Sangha. So the first quality, the Sangha of the Blessed Ones, disciple who have practiced well. That means they practice properly. So this is the first quality. And the second one, who practice this straightforwardly. Straightforward. So this one depends on interpreter. So the first one will be when practice means practice a good way. It means a wholesome path, doesn't lead to evil and wrong paths. Maybe there are some sort of unwholesome following, can be a unwholesome cult following, or maybe let's say the stereotypical kind of Satanism, for example, people who practice something but they practice evil and they worship evil, for example. Yeah? So this is, there are many kinds of worship. So if you want to talk about the Sangha, right, they are practicing wholesome path. Yeah, things that lead to goodness. Okay, then the second one will practice the straightforwardly and the straight way. That means they practice the Noble Eightfold Path and the middle way. And the third one will practice methodically. And that means they know the step-by-step, the method to practice correctly, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, the Eightfold Path. And the fourth one, who have practiced masterfully. That means they achieve the goal. Right? Methodically is still the process. And then number 4 is they reach and realize the path. Okay, so there are 4 pairs, 8 individuals, and these are the Sangha of the Blessed Ones, disciples. So I think we've covered this in the previous session called the fetters and fruitions. So there are total 10 fetters, Fetters. These are the chains that bind us to this samsara, this cycle of suffering. And the 4 pairs, right, or basically the 4 kinds of people. The first one is the first pair, right? Path to stream entry and the fruit to stream entry. So these are the people who just seen the light, just seen the Dhamma. So this is the first pair. And the second pair will be the path to this once returner and the fruition to a non-returner. So these are the other 2. So that's the second pair. And the third pair would be path to non-returning and the fruition of non-returning. And the last pair would be path to arahantship and the fruition of arahantship. So total, these 4 pairs, 8 individuals. So that's how they classify it. So if you want to interpret it loosely, then any practitioner can classify as one of the first pair, but it's not so simple. We have to practice along the Eightfold Path, right? Non-greed, non-hatred, to a certain degree, and see the Dhamma, at least experience this Dhamma, this spiritual happiness, spiritual peace and happiness. So this is the first sign, at least you're on path. And fruition, I would say if a person were to totally relinquish this personality view and this clinging to rites and rituals associated with these personalities. So these are the 3 fetters and the person overcome. And the second pair, similarly, reduce greed and hatred. And the third pair, overcome greed and hatred. And the last pair, the Arahant, would be overcoming 5 more things, clinging to these form concentrations, formless concentrations, restlessness, what else? What else did I have forgotten? Then there's this ignorance and conceit. Yeah, so total 5. So there's total there are 10 fetters that Arahant should overcome. So this is the masterfully practiced disciples. That means they experience the truth. So it's not just theory. A lot of people can go to universities and study, get a degree in Buddhism, can even teach very well. So like the case examples I've given last time, a non-enlightened being can preach and cause others to reach enlightenment, but they themselves may not realize the truth. Right? So these are possible examples. And the 5th one, worthy of gifts. Worthy of gifts. So once a person who is at least meritorious, right? They're practicing the path, they are trying to reduce greed and hatred, and ideally, they reduce or they remove greed and hatred, then they are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. Right? Incomparable field of merit for the world. So whatever kindness you do towards that individual or to the Sangha, then it's you multiply your karma, your merit by a lot. And interesting, vice versa. If let's say you do something unwholesome, the negative karma is also multiplied by a lot. Yeah, the demerit will be a lot. So talking about worthy of respect and offerings, is very subjective. If let's say a person, for example, is a fitness enthusiast, if let's say another person can do more push-ups, more pull-ups than you, can lift more weights than you, you respect that person for all the training and hardship they've gone through. So likewise, you want to talk about spiritual practice. If a person can practice and overcome these defilements, these evil states of mind, then these are people worthy of respect, worthy of offerings, worthy of hospitality, worthy of gifts. So if they practice full time, right, just like, for example, the conventional Sangha, that's their livelihood. They don't earn for a living, right? They don't make money. So the traditional or the conventional way is for the laity to offer gifts and offerings to the conventional Sangha. So, and we talk about two kinds of Sangha, conventional and those who realize the nine. And interestingly, lay persons can also actualize the nine. Yeah, lay persons. So a person in lay person's clothing, they may not be dressed in white. They dress normal clothing, colorful clothing to work, and maybe good and bad. Sometimes they get to work and they get exposed actually to more opportunities for criticism. Yeah, if they go to work, people will badmouth you, bully you, or whatever it is. So in the Buddha's time, the Buddha would encourage that lay person to ordain, become a monastic. He might have his reasons. Yeah, okay, you see the truth, partial enlightenment, you go into solitude, go into seclusion, practice, and at least you don the robe, then people can make offerings to you. Nowadays, not so easy. Yeah? So sometimes people, they realize partial truth or whatever it is. In a way, this community of Sangha, community of practitioners, and of course, different traditions, different lineages, they will interpret it differently. How Sangha is Sangha, right? So I will leave this open-ended statement. I won't come to a conclusion. Every community has a different definition of what is Sangha, all right? But ideally, right, we talk about the series on seclusion, right? There's an inner seclusion and also there's an external seclusion. So if conventional Sangha, external Sangha, by appearance, who doesn't know how to practice the straight way or the methodical way, then the mind is not at peace all the time. There may be physical isolation or seclusion in the forest maybe, but the mind is always unhappy, always not at peace. When there's a change in weather, I get upset. Mosquitoes come, get upset. Right? Too hungry, too full, get upset. So all these things will affect you if you do not know the method or the way to reach this inner peace. So again, if let's say if we move too far to the other spectrum of the sort of the real Sangha and neglect the external Sangha, then it can be quite chaotic. Everybody can claim all the other Sangha. Why must I obey you? I have achieved this and that and this and that as a layperson. And why should I bow down to you? Something like that. So it can be very problematic. So the Buddha actually, interestingly, tried to harmonize the situation because the Buddha was from the soldier and warrior caste, right? So he came up with this interesting system where people go by seniority. Not seniority in age, but seniority in ordination. So in terms of the precepts, so if let's say amongst the monastics who've taken the full precepts, the 227 precepts, then they go by seniority, who ordained first, then they'll be in front. So the people who ordain later will have to bow down to those who ordained earlier, right? Regardless of their practice, whether they achieve the fruition or not, right? They will have to bow to the senior monastic. And likewise, then they go down the line to the samaneras, right, who took the precepts earlier, and down the line, 8 preceptors who take the precepts earlier will be more senior, and they should be given the respect, right, amongst the 8 preceptors, and likewise the 5 preceptors. So they go according to this time, chronological order, who taken the precepts earlier. So this is the Buddha's way, right, to keep things in harmony. So that's what most temples that practice in this way, right? If you have other systems, do let me know. Okay, then we move on to the next slide. Okay, so now it's inquiry, right, leads to this conviction. So this is basically how to find a good teacher. How to find a good teacher, right? So this particular scripture is just talking about the Buddha himself, the Tathagata, and how can you find whether the Tathagata is true, whether is he real, is he a perfect teacher. Of course, you can extend it. In now our modern times, you can extend it to your modern teachers, whoever it may be, and see whether they can fulfill some of the qualities, some of the criteria. Okay, so I'm going to go through these points. In different traditions, they may have it also. I believe in the Tibetan tradition, they have this thing called the Lamrim, the gradual path to enlightenment. So they have this whole segment on how to find a teacher. So the Theravada Suttas, they may have some similar points. So the first one, bhikkhus, a bhikkhu who is an inquirer, not knowing how to gauge another's mind. That means if a person do not have mind reading abilities, they do not know how to see the state of mind, whether it's enlightened, not enlightened, or concentration, no concentration. We talked about this in the Satipatthana, the third foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of states of mind. Some people can know the external state of mind. If let's say you do not know how to gauge another people's state of mind, they should make an investigation of the Tathagata, or in this case the teacher, in order to find out whether or not he is fully enlightened, or let's say in our case, whether they are qualified enough to be a teacher. Okay, so the first one, are there found in the Tathagata or not any default states cognizable through the eye or through the ear? So if you cannot know by states of mind, then you observe with your eyes and your ears. I remember when I first ordained at Santi Forest Monastery, at that time my mentor, Ajahn King, he gave me a tip, sort of advice as a new monk. He said, let your eyes and ears be your teacher. And because got so many monks coming in and out, transiting, and every monk have their own preceptor, their own mentor, or their own monastery they come from, the different kinds of practices. So we say the good things you learn, the bad things you don't learn. So that's the first advice he gave me. So yeah, so it's a good sort of survival tip. God is good and bad. Sometimes you pick and choose. If you pick and choose the correct thing, then that's good for you. If you pick and choose the wrong thing, then too bad. Yeah. So so this is the first point, right? Cognizable through the eye or through the ear. Okay, and you need to further investigate. So the second point is when he investigates you, he comes to know no default states cognizable through the eye or through the ear are found in the Tathagata. So how do you know what are these default states? For example, greed or anger or jealousy or whatever, right? So these are default states of mind. That means unwholesome or these negative virtues. And if you observe through your daily behavior, from what you see, what you hear, no issues, right? Then we move on to the next slide. Right, when it comes to know, right, to the investigation, there are no mixed states. I mean, sometimes they are very obvious negative states. If let's say a person gets angry, shout, kills, and steals, so these are very obvious unwholesome states and break the precepts on the spot. So sometimes mixed states is they follow the precepts, but the emotion or the tone may be in conflict with what they do. Right, so these are mixed states. So you can observe, whether they are mixed states. If they do not have, that means okay. That means they are, at least quite there, yeah. Then the next one, you can investigate. When it comes to know this, investigate him further. Thus, that found in the Tathagata are not cleansed states cognizable through the eye or the ear. So now we have done with the unwholesome states. So now we look at the positive states. So the wholesome states are, cleansed states are these things like compassion, loving kindness, wisdom, whatever positive qualities you want to think of. And if there is, then you should look further, right? Thus, when it comes to know this, investigate him further. Thus, has this venerable one attained this wholesome state over a long time, or did he attain it recently? Sometimes when you interact with a person, they will put on a smile and be nice to you. So in that instant, very wholesome. Yeah? So is it for this moment, or did they cultivate, change this person? They had this habit only recently, or have they been doing this for a very long time, very consistent with their practice? Right? So you need to investigate further. We'll see whether have they mastered, whether they have experience practicing these wholesome states of mind, right? So if it is over a long time, that means it's very consistent. It's not as though it's part of their character to be wholesome. Then we move on to the next one. Then when it comes to know this, investigating further, thus has this venerable one acquired renown and attained fame, so that the dangers connected with renown and fame are found in him. Right, so when a person sort of becomes a teacher, right, over time, and they might get more and more popular. So the dangers of connected with renown, fame would be, for example, pride and ego. Right, so these are the things. So if a person, you see a person before they are famous, and they're okay, they look, they practice like very well. But after they, get popular, get famous, then they practice, they change their color, change their behavior, change their attitude, become more and more negative. Right? So does this fame affect the person? Right, so in the previous sessions, we talked about equanimity, right? Fame and defame doesn't shake the mind. So if fame can shake the mind of this person and they go downhill, then not good enough. Okay, then the next point, for bhikkhus, as long as a bhikkhu has not acquired renown and attained fame, the dangers connected with renown and fame are not found in him. But when he has acquired renown and attained fame, those dangers are found in him, right? So yeah, like I mentioned, so when a person is famous, then he has issues. But when they are not famous, they look very well practiced, very humble, very polite, doesn't display their ego. So, but once they get famous, then it becomes the opposite. Right, so if it's not found in him, then we move on to the next slide. Then the other unwholesome states of mind, right? When it comes to know this, investigate him further. Is this venerable one restrained without fear, not restrained by fear? And does he avoid indulging in sensual pleasures because he is without lust through the destruction of lust? Okay, so some people may not display fear or lust because of the precepts. Like precepts, the monastic rule, we cannot, in the Thai tradition, we cannot touch the ladies. Now we cannot speak alone with a lady, and so on and so forth. So we have all these rules. So now do we display the lack of lust due to fear of the precepts, or is it because we totally eradicate lust? Right. So these are points you need to investigate. And same thing, right? Avoid this greed, right? And next one. When the Venerable One dwells in the Sangha or alone, when some of them are well behaved and some are ill behaved, right? So it's very normal because all of us are human beings. So I talk about the conventional Sangha. Some may be beginning in the practice, some may be further down in the practice. So you have all kinds of people. Some are more well practiced, some are not so well practiced. So you have some ill-behaved ones, and some are teaching, some are not teaching. While some here are seen concerned about material things, and some are unsullied by material things. And some of them are attached to gifts and offerings. Sometimes a lot of lay people offer them gifts and items, and sometimes and this is a monastic rule. So sometimes monks will approach lay people, hey, you can buy me this and buy me that. So hankering after householder. So not so nice. Yeah. So if they are not affected by material things, right, and that teacher doesn't despise, right, those monastics. So again, for those monastics who are not so well behaved, by right there is Sangha kind of transaction that deals with such behavior, and it's of course up to the individual's mentor or the preceptor to guide the disciple. Yeah. So, but the Buddha, we talk about different kind of training, right? So if a person's mind is equanimous, and they shouldn't be affected by how well the students perform. So nowadays, if you go to a normal classroom, some teachers want the students to score well, and I think it's very common for, at least if you can remember your childhood days, if you come across teachers that yell and scream at students, get very angry and yell and scream at students. Yeah, y'all never experienced this in Malaysia? Wow. Okay, Malaysia is truly Asia. Very polite and very nice. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to stop for now. Now it's 9 o'clock. Just theoretical kind of sharing. I don't want to go too deep. So at least you have some food for thought, to how to look for a good teacher, a good Dharma teacher. So these are at least the qualities you can reflect on, wholesome qualities. Later on in the meditation, you can reflect on good behavior, wholesome behavior, when you practice the proper way. All right. Any questions on the floor? I can open up to the floor now.
Bante, 晚间好啊！我想请问一下，这个26和27号的那个禅修啊，因为我有做工呢，我不知道可否Bante允许说我在怎么讲，就是我有准备的时候我才开视频，如果我在做工，我在忙，我就开不到。但是我想说。可以一边上课一边禅修这样呢，可以吗？
可以，没问题。
可以啊。
可是我是用英语来讲解哦。对了。
会有字母，好像这样的是吗？有吗？Hello？
我们这边没有那些 caption 哦。
只是用口音这样讲呢。
对。
不要紧，我就可以学多少就学多少。
OK， 好。
好，感恩。
OK， satu. Okay, any other questions? Maybe on the Facebook comments?
Bante, currently no question from Facebook.
Okay, all right. Yeah, too straightforward. Okay, if there's no issues, then we're going to have a short
sorry, Bante.
yes. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how do in wartime, how did the Sangha manage to survive during wartime? For example, during the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, because as we know, the Sangha depend on the lay people for their sustenance, for their survival. So during that dreadful period where even the lay people struggle to make living for themselves, struggle to survive, if they were not able to feed themselves, let alone to feed the Sangha. So what is your take on this?
Yeah, okay. I'm not a historian, so I do not know about the Cambodian Khmer Rouge kind of incident, or how the monks at that time, how they survived. But even in the Buddha's time, there's wars already. When the Kosalan kingdom exterminated the Sakyan kingdom, or the Kolian and the Sakyans, about to have a war over a river. So there are lots of wars going on. Yeah, the seven kingdoms were about to have a war, fighting over the Buddha's relics. So no, there are wars going on in the Buddha's time. So the whole idea is monastics by right should stay out of war, but monastics should be easily fed. Shouldn't complain of this food not good enough. Then we go for arms round. Whatever we receive, we will just partake.
Okay, understood. And another question. As we all generally know, as laid out in the Vinaya rule, that that monks are strictly prohibited from having physical contact with women, and vice versa, and likewise for nuns, strictly prohibited from having physical contact with the opposite gender. So suppose if a monk is ill, is weak, and has to be bedridden in the hospital, can a female nurse touch a monk, but only for the purpose of treating the monk, probably perhaps to fix his IV bag, or to fix his urine bag, or to give him injection, or to clean him up? So if it's in that situation, how?
Yeah, okay. So the actual rule is the monastic shouldn't intentionally touch the gender, the opposite gender, with lustful intention, with lustful thought, right? So there are other traditions that interpret it differently or practice the rule differently, so they can shake hands with the other gender, they can sometimes hug and whatever. So to them, if there's no lustful thought arise in them, then they don't break the rule. Right? But in Thai tradition, we are a bit more kiasu, right? So we don't even have physical contact. Right? But in the case of illness or hospital, sometimes there might be exemptions. If you're ill, you have no choice. The medical staff, sometimes you may request to have male nurse or male staff to attend to you. But if they're out of resources, out of manpower, then of course no choice.
So it's permissible. So in just as you described, in that kind of situation, there can be there can be leniency, there can be exception.
Yeah, correct. We talked about
it
it in the previous session. Multi-traditions and enlightenment, we talked about the flexibility, the 4 great standards. If the situation, it presents itself like this, no choice really. You cannot die, stick the rule. I want a male nurse to give me a dosage of medicine. Then if no dose, how then you just die on the spot. Die on the spot.
I see.
Yeah.
Because even the Dalai Lama himself, embraces femininity, but only on grounds of only by amicable grounds.
Yeah, so like mentioned, the actual precept is without lustful intention.
Okay.
So different communities will practice it differently.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay.
Bhante, there's a question on Facebook.
Okay.
There are many traditions in Buddhism. How do we identify genuine Sangha?
Okay, genuine Sangha again is very hard to identify unless you have mind reading abilities. You can know the state of mind, whether they are pure or not pure. Then again, we just nowadays just look at the conventional Sangha, the external Sangha. One of the most interesting quote I would like is to abstract is from this Venerable Maha, one of the chief disciples of the Buddha, foremost in ascetic practice. Before he got enlightened, if I'm not wrong, it took about 8 days to reach full enlightenment. So the first 7 days, when he's going for alms round, every time he receives the meal, he says he is in debt. Whatever the food he takes in, this is a debt. Only after he got enlightened, then he's free from debt. All right, so for all the practicing Sangha, the conventional Sangha in robes, right, we are living off the kindness or the generosity or the merit from the Buddha. All right, so if we abuse his founding of the religion and we make use of his offerings without realizing the truth, we're actually creating this unwholesome karma. For the monastics, we are creating unwholesome karma. So every mouthful of food we take in, we are creating negative karma if you don't practice correctly. So again, this is again within the Sangha problem. But if a layperson, they give out of pure intention to the Fourfold Assembly, to the Sangha of the past, present, and future, to the Triple Gem, then it's a very meritorious intention, very meritorious act. All right. So hopefully that answers the question.
All right, thank you, Bhante. Follow up with that question.
Yeah.
I'd like to add on my own questions. Since we have so many traditions in Buddhism, we might find a bit of a difficulty in finding a teacher to follow, especially for lay people who don't have a Sangha member around us. So how can we judge from them?
Yeah, there's a short saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So depending on your current state of mind, you have different criteria to look out for. You have like a checklist. Now currently you want this kind of teacher, your ideal teacher will be like this, like this, like this, like this. Have certain criteria. So yeah, at this point of time, you just look for whatever you can. And along the way, when you practice, your criteria may change. Then you just change accordingly. So in the Buddha's time, that's what they do, right? Between the different, we call it the ascetic groups, they jump from teacher to teacher, or even in the Buddhist monastic community when Buddhism grew in India, the new monastics, right? And they look for senior monk, they jump from senior monk to senior monk to look for instructions. If it doesn't satisfy them, doesn't help them at all, then they just jump to the next teacher. Right? So it's even practiced today in our monastic code. We can choose our own acharya. If our preceptor is not around, right, we look for our mentor. So if the mentor is, you find a better one, you can you can request that person to be your mentor. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Bante.
Okay, no problem. Okay, any other questions?
Sorry, Bante,
Yeah.
another more.
Okay.
During the Buddha's times, there are dating back to the Buddha's time, there are monks with there are monks possessing psychic powers. But why in modern times we don't have there's no case where monks having psychic power in modern times?
Yeah, very good point. Yes, psychic abilities, like in the past, maybe due to competition, due to the different sectarian groups or religious groups competition, then you have this full set of these 37 factors of enlightenment, including these 4 bases of psychic power, 4 bases of success. So that will be included inside to make enlightenment very whole, very complete. Enlightened being must look as though they can fly, or their mind reading abilities, and behave like some superhero you see in the movies. But again, these special abilities are separate from reducing defilement. There are lots of cases where people have higher knowledges, special abilities, but they didn't overcome greed and hatred. One good example would be, let's say, Devadatta himself. He himself has psychic abilities. He can transform into different shapes and animals to convince this prince Ajatasattu to assassinate the Buddha, try to overthrow the Buddha and whatever not. Yeah, so this again, having abilities is a different kind of training, but nowadays, of course, even in the monastic rules, we have the rules not to declare superhuman states to layperson. That means I cannot say I have this ability or I have reached this certain attainment. So we cannot say this to an unordained person. Right, so we cannot declare if it's true, it's a minor offense. If it's false, then it's a very serious offense. So this is the monastic rules. But in the past, they have to see the situation. If they display it and doesn't help the disciple, doesn't help the audience to understand the truth, then it's reprimandable. Yeah, like this Venerable Pindola, he accepted this challenge to fly up and take this wooden bowl. So the Buddha knew about it, and he smashed the bowl. So why you fly for one? No? Yeah, doesn't help the person. But in certain scenarios, the Buddha himself also displays certain abilities, like, for example, to confront this Angulimala. He has to use it to outrun Angulimala, if not, he will be chopped up to pieces. And of course, he needs to show that his abilities are better than his previous teacher who encouraged him to kill 1,000 people. Yeah? So he needs to use this to shake him off his idea. Right? So it depends on the situation, depends on context. But nowadays, we don't really display it. And of course, historically, there's some upsets in the balance in the Buddhist world, in history. Certain unwholesome things happen that reduce the meditators' knowledge. We talk about this in the history of Buddhism. But never mind about that. But nowadays, there are lots of modern case studies. I think some of you might have seen some documentaries like the Cold War, the US and Russia, they are recruiting certain spies with abilities for remote viewing. There's certain divine eye, they can stay in their hometown and just look at enemy's base from far without equipment. Yeah, we call these remote viewers. So there are people with psychic abilities, but they don't use it for spiritual reasons. Yeah. Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if there's no questions, we go for a 5-minute break to do your stretching or your toilet break, and we'll be back. All right, it's 9:21, so 9:26. Yeah. See you back later. Okay, I returned. Let's wait for. Okay, everyone's back. Okay, so any other queries before we start? Okay, if not, then we shall proceed in the guided meditation. So you find a comfortable sitting position. Make sure your back is upright and your body relaxed. Okay, and today we are going to carry on with this contemplation on faith. Yeah, so we talk about the various qualities of a wholesome teacher. And it can be a Buddha or even a Sangha member. So it doesn't necessarily have to be even a Sangha member. It can be anybody you meet in your workplace or family members that are inspiring, your role models who have positive traits, positive virtues. You can think of these virtues, think of these traits, but for the sake of simplicity, we call them Sangho, yeah? Sangho means community of practitioners who practice goodness, right? So we shall now recall in mind any inspiring teacher that you came across who is wholesome, not any mundane kind of teaching or mundane kind of teacher, but teacher that teaches you something spiritual, something wholesome, that benefited your life and transform you to be a better person, become less selfish or less greedy or less angry. So you think of those qualities of that teacher. So we are going to use this word or mantra called Sangho, yeah? So we are going to repeat in the mind over and over again. And from now on, no need to replay any dramas or stories pertaining to what happened between you and your teacher. Just once, the quality that inspire you, and then we just maintain this and keep repeating this mantra, Sangho, Sangho, Sangho. Yeah. Once we think of story, we'll daydream, and the mind will cling on to restlessness. So make sure we are walking the straight way, straightforward, straight way, that means the Eightfold Path, the middle way. So the sides and the extremes at the side along the pathways are distractions. One extreme is sensual pleasure. So when meditating, they're bound to have thoughts, fantasies of the past or worries of the past. So that is sensual pleasure. Or even now, sense contact, painful feeling or pleasant feeling of the chair of your body, right? So all these are sensual pleasure. One extreme, we might cling, we might stray to that extreme, and we won't carry on our journey anymore. So we try to avoid this extreme. So whatever sceneries you see at the side, nice memories, fond memories, we just treat them as scenery, just by passing by sceneries. And we just stick to Sanko, 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 your meditation theme, and keep traveling. The other extreme is aversion or hatred. Anything unpleasant, you want to reject, you want to push away, that is another extreme. So we don't stop the journey just to fight with the scenery. We just carry on our journey. Maintain mindfulness of the meditation object, right? Sanko, Sanko, Sanko. So it's called constant repetition. Never leave your mind idle. Once your mind is doing nothing for more than 2 seconds, it will definitely cling onto these extreme side views, sensual pleasure or aversion. So the right thought is the inspiring quality. Make sure you're inspired, and then we maintain the right effort. Keep reciting. And short mantra, one word mantra or short mantras can lead one to may lead one to formless concentrations. So whatever peaceful experience you have, also again all these side sceneries and side views, do not stop to look at the scenery, just treat it as passerby and carry on your journey. Likewise, do not reject that experience and let it come and go by itself. And we keep maintaining the middle way, traveling along the path. So more wholesome thoughts we have, the calmer the mind should be. So keep intentionally generating this wholesome thought, Sankho, Sankho, Sankho. And if you're out of juice, or you're out of faith, out of energy, then you might choose one of the three, Buddho, Dhammo, or Sankho, the triple gem. And for those who, let's say, have reached certain peace with Sankho, then if you want, you can change to Dhammo, the Dharma. It's the Four Noble Truth. Every time you apply right thinking, and the mind will gear towards inner peace, And every time when there's unskillful thoughts and clinging and stress arises, and the more we keep repeating the right thought and purifying the mind, so it's like a scientific process, yeah? The more right thoughts we have, the more we purify the mind. And we get closer and closer to this sort of Buddha nature. Or the awakened mind, yeah? So it needs awakening. So this mind is still sleeping, long slumber in delusion, and we need lots of ringing to wake it up. So lots of repetition, lots of reciting of the good thoughts, Buddha, Dhamma, or Sangha. So the metaphor for the mind is always like this lotus flower. So before it's awakened, it is closed up. So the awakening is the blooming and opening of the petals, and there are many petals. So every time we think we are already very calm and peaceful, there's actually something even calmer and more peaceful than that. So you keep maintaining the right thoughts and right effort. Keep repeating the mantra. And slowly open the rest of the petals. Okay, and we are now moving to the next phase of meditation. Just trying to work on a bit of insight. We're going to think of the impurities of the body. We're going to think of the hairs, wish them well and happy from head to toe. Every time you think of a new patch of hair, You need to wish it well and happy. So once introduce thoughts of non-hatred, and now thoughts of impermanence. All these hairs go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. Think of the hairs growing and falling many, many times, many birth and death cycles. So the impermanence, the more the merrier, create more detachment and cause the mind to settle. And you can see how far mind can settle. And we can ask ourselves, are these hairs truly self? Can we tell the hairs not to go through birth and death? Next up, we can visualize the nails, and may all the fingernails be well and happy, and may all the toenails be well and happy. And all the nails go through birth and death. So they grow and fall, grow and fall. Think of this birth and death cycle many, many times. And we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can we tell the nails not to go through birth and death? And next we can think of the skin. From head to toe, we wish all the skin well and happy. And all the skin and go through this birth and death. So they keep growing and falling many, many times, many birth and death cycles. And then we can ask ourselves, are the skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through this birth and death? Okay, so the more we think of impermanence, and the more the mind gets sort of purer or more peaceful, and then we can always be mindful of this Dharma, and then we can recollect the triple gem in any order. Yeah, three of them are related. And with that in mind, we can physically end the session, gently open our eyes. All right, it's 10. Any questions? Any problems faced in the meditation? Yeah, Yiling has something.
During the Sangho, when we recite the 2 syllables, Sangho, I mean what I want to say, the duration between these 2 syllables, sang and go, is it mean, does it matter whether if it is long or short? Should it go faster, Sangho, or should it go in accordance to the rhythm of the breath, like breathing in sang and then exhale go, inhale sang, exhale go?
Okay, there are many variations. So if you want to talk about on the go kind of recollection, then there's no need to follow the rhythm, and just mentally just keep repeating.
So during that process of repeating, I mean mentally repeating Sangho. So can we visualize our our spiritual teachers whom we gain inspiration? Like for in my case, I would visualize a Burmese meditation master, the Mahasi Sayadaw, or Mahasi Sayadaw, or not necessarily one particular teacher. You can visualize whoever you are inspired, who inspired you. I also visualize Venerable Mahinda, because what draws me to Venerable Mahinda is because of his gentleness. Because his gentleness is one of the quality that I adore about Venerable Mahinda. And also Ajahn Chan, and another Burmese monk who also displayed this attribute of gentleness. His name is Sayadaw Jotika. I wonder if you know him. His name is Sayadaw Jotika. He's very remarkably gentle and gracious. So during that Sangho, during that mental reciting that Sangho, I visualize all these these teachers I mentioned by rotation. So am I doing the right thing?
Yeah, if you want to talk about developing jhanas, then for beginning, I wouldn't recommending visualization too much. You might just visualize for a short moment to inspire, get this faith, but don't do it for too long. And just carry on with the Sangho, yeah. And we'll cover that in the later part of the series. It's part of the 4 bases of psychic power and these visualization exercises.
Oh, I see. So what we are supposed to do is simply just blank out all thoughts, just blank out the mind, pitch black void. Just simply, all we have to do is just simply recite Sangho. That's it.
Yeah.
All thoughts are blank out.
Yeah, the whole idea of entering samadhi is to sort of withdraw from the senses. That means we try not to get involved or interact with any of the interface of the senses too much.
I see. Okay, thank you. Very helpful.
Okay, no problem. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, then we can conclude the session. Okay, the dedication chant. Akasata Chakumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyantang Anumuditva Chiram Rakantu Lokasasanam Etavata Jamhi Sampada Punya Sampadam Sabbe Deva Sabbe Bhuta Sabbe Sata Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya. Transference of merits to departed. Ida menyadina hotu, sukita hotu nyatayo. Ida menyadina hotu, sukita hotu nyatayo. Ida menyadina hotu, sukita hotu nyatayo. Aspiration. Imina punya kamena, ame bala samagamo. Sata samagamo hotu yavani bada patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, and that's it. Any announcements from Terence?
Thank you, Bante. Just a gentle reminder, we are having a meditation retreat this weekend, 26th, 27th of June. To scan the QR code to register. For the schedule and more details, please visit the msbs.my website. Thank you everyone for watching. For other videos, please visit the links below. Thank you, Bante.
No problem. Is there a
So
session next Tuesday?
Do you want it?
It's up to you. Like the
To
previous
have a rest.
retreats, you
Yeah.
normally take a break after that.
You want to have a break?
It's up to you. I'm okay.
Then continue, lor.
Okay, all right.
If Bante is not tired, then we continue.
Okay,
Thanks, Bante.
no problem. Okay, so see you all this weekend, and also if not, then next Tuesday.
Okay.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.